So I'll read from the Manahasiksha, Splendid Instructions to the Mind by Raghunath Das Goswami. And we are on verse number 9, commentary by Sachinandan Swami Maharaj. I'll read one more paragraph that we read yesterday to bring up to the speed, and then we will continue. Raghunath Das Goswami felt ecstasy, which is there for every pilgrim. The Dham will reveal Radha and Krishna to us. Just by vision of Giriraj and Radhakund, Rati will arise. If we are chanting and are aware of the pastimes, we might catch a glimpse of Radha and Krishna, the perfect picture for meditation. So now we will continue. Krishna Bhaktas always meditate on the ideal surrounding for service to the Lord. We meditate on the Dham, Giriraj, trees, a soothing atmosphere, bees, birds, Yamunaji, Radha Kund, and on the associates who will then invite Radha and Krishna. Krishna's devotees knows that Radha and Krishna will never leave a heart that has become Vrindavan. So we make our hearts Vrindavan. Vrindavan Chandra and Vrindavaneshwari come together, and the Chakura birds are drinking their waves of beauty. This is also the vision of our Sampradaya, the Hare Krishnas. Once there was a minister from Bharatpur who was performing a Dandvat Parikrama around Radha Kund. We have seen even on the Bharat, the Govardhan Parikrama they do with this Dandvat. And some we have seen that they do 108 times Dandvat before they move further. Take years and years. One disciple praised him to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Bhaktisiddhanta made the point that the minister worshipped Radharani because she is dear to Krishna. But we worship Krishna because he is dear to Radharani. From the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj. This is how to think of Radha and Krishna. Sri Raghunath Das Goswami prays in Vilap Kushum Ajanli 102. Varoro Radha, I somehow spent my time here aspiring after oceans of nectar. But if you are not merciful to me, then of what use are Krishna living in Braj and even life itself? Srila Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book, chapter 21, quote, persons who are constantly engaged in the transcendental meditation of seeing Krishna internally and externally by thinking of him playing the flute and entering the Vrindavan forest have really attained the perfections of Samadhi. Samadhi, trance means absorptions of all the activities of the senses on a particular object. And the gopis indicate that the pastimes of Krishna are the perfection of all meditations and Samadhi. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that anyone who is always absorbed in the thought of Krishna is the topmost of all yogis. Here are the perfect meditator yogis the birds of Vrindavan. O Mother, in this forest, all the birds have arisen onto the beautiful branches of the trees to see Krishna. With closed eyes, they are simply listening in silence to the sweet vibrations of his flute. Yet they are not attracted by any other sound. Surely these birds are on the same level as the great sages. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:20, 1:14. So there are chakura birds, the unusual birds living on the moonlight. Also we find the chakravak birds, the round duck, who fly together in the day but must spend the night separately. There are also chataka birds who drink only water falling from the cloud. Haribo. Then we will find the swans of Vrindavan and the Kanjana birds who move restlessly. Then there are cuckoos and the papihan birds who call Pikahan, which means, where is my beloved? The gopis call these birds great saints. The birds sit silently and listen to the flutes. We could say they are ordinary birds, but Purnamasi says that first take asana, then do dhyana, and then have darshan. So they must be yogis. When Krishna sees such appreciative birds, he puts his flute aside for a moment. But the spiritually conscious Venu then play out of its own initiative to please the birds. Krishna lifts the flute, blowing special rags without his breath, and looks at it with amazement. Krishna is so much inspired by this scene that his heart opens and he plays inconceivably beautiful music. The bird yogis then see the vision of Shyam Sundar in their hearts. And then, as Krishna continues playing his flute, they start singing their kirtan, O Krishna, O Krishna, O Krishna. This is the perfect meditation under the guidance of the authoritative Manahasiksa. It is a perfect picture of Radha Krishna with their associates, Lalita and Visakha in Vrindavan, with Govardhan Hill and Radha Kunda. So I think we should stop here, and tomorrow we'll be dwelling, commentary by Urmila Devidasi. Now we will dwell in the life of Srila Prabhupada. We have started the volume number 5, and we are beginning chapter number 1. The land is yours. Calcutta, 1971. It was midnight, and Srila Prabhupada sat on a pillow behind his low desk, his light the only one on in the building. All the other devotees were in bed. On the desk before him rested the dictating machine and a volume of Srimad Bhagavatam with Bengali commentary. A small framed picture of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, sat between two small vases of roses and asters. On the floor beyond the desk was the broad mat covered with white cotton fabric, where a few hours before devotees and guests as said. But now he was alone. Although usually he retired at 10, rising 3 or 4 hours later to translate. She repeatedly said Prabhupada used to sleep 3 to 4 hours. Tonight he had not rested, and his Bhagavatam lay closed, his dictating machine covered. He had sent two of his disciples, Tamal Krishna and Bali Mardan, to purchase land in Mayapur. 6 days had passed, however, and still they had neither returned nor sent a word. He had told them not to return until they had completed the transactions. But 6 days was more than enough time. He was anxious, thinking constantly of his two disciples. A breeze arrived, carrying the fragrance of neem tree through the open window. The night was becoming cool, and Prabhupada wore a light chadar around his shoulder. Absorbed in thought, leaning against the white bolster pillow, he paid little attention to the familiar sights in his room. A clay jug with drinking water sat beside him, and a potted tulsi plant sat upon a small wooden pedestal. The electricity of most of the day and night was now on, and moths and other insects hovered around the bare bulb overhead. A lizard patrolled the ceiling, occasionally darting forward near the light to capture an insect. Why were Tamal Krishna and Bali Mardan taking so long? It had been more than just a wait of 6 days. He had been trying to obtain land in Mayapur for years, and this time the prospect had been excellent. He had clearly instructed Tamal Krishna and Bali Mardan, and by now they should have returned. The delay could mean a complication or even danger. The land they were trying for was a 9 binga, one 2.5 binga is equal to 1 acre, something like that. 9 binga plot on the Bhakti Siddhanta Road, less than a mile from the birthsite of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Sak brothers, Muslim farmers who owned the plot, had been asking a high price. Only recently had a Calcutta lawyer familiar with Navadvip been able to seriously negotiate a fair price. The Sikh brothers had settled for 14,500 rupees, and Prabhupada has authorized withdrawal of the fund from his bank in Krishnanagar. Thus, Tamal Krishna and Bali Mardan had left for Mayapur, while Prabhupada had remained in Calcutta, carrying on with his affair, but thinking often of the activities of his disciples in Mayapur. Their mission was very important to him, and he kept them in his mind, personally blessing them with his concern. Prabhupada wanted an ISKCON center in Mayapur. It was a desire that had increased within him as his movement has increased throughout the years. He could easily visit or live in Mayapur. That was not the problem. But he needed a place for his disciples. His spiritual master had ordered him to preach in the West. And now, with the success of his Krishna Consciousness Society, the Western Vaishnavas required a center in Mayapur where they could recite and worship and receive the immense benefit of the holy Dham. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had stressed the great importance of Mayapur, and some of his sannyasi disciples had temples there. Why shouldn't the International Society for Krishna Consciousness also be able to take shelter of Mayapur? Since birth, Prabhupada had been aware of the significance of the Lord Chaitanya and his Dham, Sri Mayapur. He had grown up in Calcutta, where everyone knew of Lord Chaitanya. And because his father, Gaur Mohan De, had been a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya, from childhood he had sung the Bengali songs of Gaur Nitai and their pastimes in the land of Gauda. He had imbibed deeply the teachings and pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, especially after meeting his spiritual master in Calcutta, which year he met first time. Anybody should either remember which year Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati first time? No one? 1922. So please remember. Lord Chaitanya had spent his first 24 years in Mayapur and Navadvip. Yet, since his manifest pastimes, they're almost 500 years ago, the places of those pastimes had been obscured and Lord's birth site lost, and his teachings confused and misused. Despite the disciplic line of pure devotees from Lord Chaitanya, not until the advent of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, father of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, did Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and pure teachings begin to emerge. Bhaktivinoda Thakur published many books and preached to re-establish the intellectual, moral, and spiritual integrity of Chaitanya Vaishnavism. He researched and explored the land of Navadvip, ascertaining the exact birth site of Lord Chaitanya. Citing Vedic evidence, he established that many previous incarnations of Vishnu had enacted pastimes in Navadvip. Not only did Bhaktivinoda Thakur document Navadvip's past glory, but he also foresaw its glorious future. When a religion based on the teaching of Lord Chaitanya would emerge and spread throughout the world, and when European and American Vaishnavas would throng to Navadvip to join their Bengali brothers in chanting Jai Satchinandana, the time would come, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, when in the land of Navadvip, on the plains of Ganges, a magnificent temple would arise, proclaiming to the world the glories of Lord Chaitanya. We can see the desire of the pure devotees get fulfilled. Haribo. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, carrying out the desire of his father and preceptor, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, had formed the Gaudiya Math for propagating the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the glories of Navadvip Dham. He had induced a wealthy disciple to spend his fortune for erecting a temple at Lord Chaitanya's birth site in Mayapur. And he had constructed a kirtan hall commemorating the place of Lord Chaitanya's Kirtanas. He had also constructed his own residence in Mayapur. He had built temples throughout India, 64 in all. But because he wanted the English speaking world especially to take to Lord Chaitanya's movement, he had emphasized this as first priority to publishing and distributing of Krishna conscious literature. Srila Prabhupada, sitting in his room in the Calcutta temple, shared the great vision of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Yet to enact this great vision, he had to take practical steps, and he was content to take them in the most humble way. A devotee should not simply daydream, expecting Krishna to accomplish everything with miracles. Prabhupada, however, was not dreaming idly. Working for years along in India, he had held his plan of going to the West, and Krishna had at last fulfilled that desire. In America, in whatever circumstances and with whatever small facility Krishna had provided, he had preached, and slowly, step by step, he had met with success, realizing his vision of a worldwide society of devotees. Always he had kept his greater vision in mind, as every step forward had given him deeper satisfaction and had brought him closer to fulfilling his mission. Prabhupada sometimes told the story of a poor potter who dreamed of expanding his business and becoming fabulously rich. As the potter slept one night, he dreamed of how much land and how many houses he would have, and of how he would have a beautiful wife. When the potter considered that perhaps the wife would quarrel with him, he became angry and said, quote, "If my wife fights with me, I will kick her." Unquote. And kicking, he broke the only two parts in his stocks and was reduced to nothing. Whether chanting or writing or reading or preaching, Prabhupada had been absorbed in his plan for spreading Krishna consciousness and fulfilling the dream of the past acharyas. Now he was anxious to complete the next step, and for this he was waiting up past midnight, meditating on his two disciples and their important mission. As Prabhupada sat, wrapped in thought, the only sound were the usual sound of the night, mice within the walls, a brahmachari snoring on the veranda, and in the distance, the night watchman making his round, his stick striking the street. There were no cars and only an occasional wooden rickshaw clattered along the pothole street. Prabhupada wondered if perhaps his boys had been robbed. Before sending them off, he had shown Tamal Krishna how to carry money around his waist in a makeshift cloth money belt. But it had been a great deal of money, and robberies were not uncommon around Navdeep. Or perhaps there had been some other delay. Sometimes in land negotiation involving large sums of money, The court would require that a clerk record the denominations and serial number of every note exchanged, or perhaps the train had broken down. Suddenly, Prabhupada heard footsteps on the stairs. Someone opened the outer door and now walked along the veranda just outside. A soft knock. Yes, who is it? Prabhupada asked. Tamal Krishna entered and prostrated himself before Srila Prabhupada. So, Prabhupada asked, what is your news? Tamal Krishna looked up triumphantly. Quote, the land is yours, unquote. Prabhupada leaned back with a sigh. All right, he said, now you can take a rest. I think this topic episode is finished. We will embark upon other one now. This is in London, August of 1971. Prabhupada had asked the Indian High Commissioner for the United Kingdom to petition Prime Minister Indira Gandhi to attend ISKCON's upcoming cornerstone laying ceremony in Mayapur. Already Prabhupada had instructed all his GBC secretaries to attend the ceremony, and he had asked the devotees to invite many prominent citizens of Calcutta. Writing to his disciples in India, he said that if they could not get Indira Gandhi to come, they should at least get the governor of Bengal, Sri S.S. Dhawan. Meanwhile, Prabhupada was meeting in London with several of his disciples, experiencing in architecture and design. He wanted them to draw plans for his Mayapur project. Nar Narayan had built Rath Yatra carts and designed temple interiors. Ranchod had studied architecture, and Bhavananda had been a professional designer. But Prabhupada himself conceived the plan for the Mayapur building. He then told his three-man committee to provide sketches and an architect's model. He would immediately begin raising funds and securing support in India for the project. To the devotees who heard Prabhupada's plan, this seems the most ambitious ISKCON project ever. While taking his morning walks in Rasal Square, Prabhupada would point to various buildings and ask how high they were. Finally, he announced one morning that the main temple in Mayapur should be more than 300 feet high. Mayapur's monsoon floods and sandy soil would create unique difficulties, he said, and the building would have to be built on a special foundation, a sort of floating raft. A civil engineer later confirmed this. The first building, Prabhupada said, should be a large guest house, 4-story high, and his design, although not strictly conforming to any one school of architecture, resembled most that of Rajasthan. He wanted a pink and rust-colored building with many arches and a wide marble veranda on each floor, except the ground floor. This is what we have done at the sannyasi's house, that each sannyasis, they have their own veranda and also one common veranda where we have 3 sannyasis can stay upstairs, and there is a special veranda if they want to sit outside. And we have put a mosquito nets so mosquitoes cannot bother them. We think so much when we build this facility. And Krishna is the one who gave us the intelligence. Haribol. The building should run east-west so that the sun would pass lengthwise over it and not shine directly into the building's broad front. Southerly breezes would cool the guest house in summer. The building should be equipped with electric fans and lights, modern toilets and showers, and the rooms should be furnished, spacious, and well ventilated. This guest house should be built as soon as possible. Prabhupada said then other buildings would follow. He wanted residential building for 500 devotees, a large prasadam hall seating several thousands, a kitchen complex, and a goshala, a shelter for the cows that would pasture in nearby fields. In time, ISKCON would acquire adjoining land and develop parks with flower gardens, trees and shrubs, fountains, walkways, and arbors. The main building, the colossal Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir, was to be no less than 300 feet high and costing perhaps tens of millions of dollars. Prabhupada's description astounded the architect as well as the devotees. It sounded grander than the United States Capitol or St. Peter's Cathedral. The temple's central dome would house a three-dimensional model of a universe. The design, however, would be based on the Vedic description and would depict not only the material universe but also the spiritual universe. What a great vision Prabhupada had in detail. Huh? Entering the main hall, a person would look up and see the planets situated just as Srimad Bhagavatam described, beginning with the hellish planet, then the middle planets wherein the earth is situated, and then the heavenly planets of the demigod, and then Brahmaloka, the highest planet in the material world. Above Brahmaloka, the observer would see the abode of Lord Shiva, and above that, the spiritual sky of Brahmajyoti. Within the spiritual effulgence of the Brahmajyoti would be the self-illuminating Vaikuntha planets, inhabited by eternally liberated souls. And highest of all would be the supreme planet of Krishna Loka, where God in his original eternal form enjoys his pastimes with his most confidential devotees. The temple would also house a miniature palace in which the deities of Radha and Krishna would reside, surrounded by silk and pillars of silver, gold, and jewels. The Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir and the Mayapur city would be ISKCON's world headquarters. 6:54, I think we should stop here. Should be punctual in our practices. And before the devotees leave, we would like to offer our humble obeisances at the desk of lotus feet of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, who is taking so much austerity to join every morning, despite so many difficulties, traveling, so many other things happening. You know, this material world is ever changing. We will never be able to find that time will come that peacefully we will be able to perform our sadhana very strictly. That will never happen. Always something will come always. So be prepared that obstacles are always there. Something, a visitor comes, guest comes, in-laws comes to stay. So many other responsibility, children's, their study, husband sometime or the wife, they have a habit to go to bed late, then they have to accompany the partner. All these things always will be there. But if we remain fixed, Krishna will show us the path and give us the strength to remain fixed in the devotional practice. And that's what Krishna wants us to show him, that how desperate we are to attain his company. It's require a lot of, even to get material education, something. How many years of hard work we put to just get that ordinary degree. So about to speak of becoming free from this sansar, this cycle of birth and death. Tremendous effort is required. And that's the reason not that many devotees succeed to become free from the cycle of birth and death. Because we get so much entangled and we feel obligations, all these things. Oh, I must do this, I must do this. But what we should do, we didn't have that much time. So this is the material world. But if we have sincere desire and teach austerities in the life and explain to the, have a istagoshti in the house with the husband, wife, and the children and set for the goal of the life. Have a meeting, discuss this thing, share your thoughts and get their inputs and see how we can accomplish that goal, get their input, get them involved, that this is what we should do. And then it will become more effective because then everybody will see the need of becoming fixed in our devotional practice. So Ishtagoshti is very important among the householders actually. We should be open and frank and lay down, with the uh, uh, approval of other family members. Work. Some may not come to the level, then give them little time. But you remain fixed and let them know that this is what I want to do in my life. Because nobody will be able to save us from the cycle of birth and death. We have to make ourselves the effort to become free. And that will require tremendous practicality, wisdom, uh, but tolerance, patience, all these things, enthusiasms, all this hard work, determination, simplicity, all these things is essential part of that path. So with those thoughts, I think we should stop here. Offer our humble obeisances. Vanchukalpatarupasya kripa sindhubhaivacha patitana